That's my part. Don't steal my part.
Brian Geltzeiler is on the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Shop hundreds of Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. Brian Geltzeiler can be heard nationally on Sirius XM NBA radio. You see him occasionally on NBA TV. You hear him on this show because we love him, even though he has picked against the Heat in all three playoff series, according to Solana, right? You've been tracking him, Solana?
Yeah, I mean, he's been on a couple times. And listen, nobody loves Geltzy more than me. I have a feeling I know where this interview is going to end, and it's going to be Geltzy once again not picking the Miami Heat, and I'm just preparing for it mentally. That's all.
Geltzy, have you been a non-believer all playoffs? I have not been tracking it.
Well, first of all let's start with this, okay? Well, I'm going to answer that question in a minute. Solana, you're so full of crap. Your eyes are brown, okay? No one loves Geltzy more than me.
Right.
There's two other guys on the air right now that love me more than you love me. First of all, all right?
Yep.
That's Hoch and Crowder. So right then and there, we got Solana, all right? Now, before I answer the question, Hoch, how are you a self-respecting Eagles fan and not know the words to The Heat Is On? I mean, Crowder, you hear that? He's like going through words, going boo, 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 mumbling his way through words to the song. How do you not know the Glenn Fry classic? The Heat Is On. You know the words?
I have to tell you, first of all, I do not like the Eagles. I'm one of the few. I think Witchy Woman is one of the worst songs ever written, and people think it's a great song. But
it's not a great song. I love the Eagles, and it's not a great song.
All right, good. I've never
that.
been an Eagles fan. I know the lyrics to The Heat Is On. The Heat is on because the heat is on. Da, 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 da. I know the lyrics.
Hey, Geltzy, it's every song he sings. He loves Hall & Oates. Doesn't know a word.
Yeah, I can't retain song lyrics. I know the melody and I know how to hum along, but I don't know the lyrics.
You're probably a heck of a lot of fun at karaoke, huh? So let me start with this. I have picked against the Heat in every series.
All right, explain yourself. How dare you?
Well, I picked against them in the Bucks series because the Heat were a hot mess in the play-in tournament. They played 3 good minutes of basketball in the play-in tournament, and it was enough to get in the playoffs. So that's why I picked them against the Bucks. I picked the Knicks in 7 only because of home court. Felt that would be a very, very close series. And here I picked Boston in 7 because I thought it would be a very, very close series. So if that makes me a non-believer, I don't know that I'm totally a non-believer. Listen, at the beginning of this series, I happened to maybe allegedly put a little wager on the Heat to win the series plus 400 because that looked like a very good, valuable number. So I kind of felt like I should do that. But my point being is that I wouldn't call myself a non-believer in the Heat. I think I've been a little bit too much of a realist, and they've done what they've done in an amazing fashion. I couldn't be more impressed. I love this team. I adore this coach. I've only been telling you guys for years that this is the best basketball coach on the planet, and he's, proving me right on that. And listen, last night was one hell of a night.
As long as we're mentioning gambling exploits, I have to tell you, Geltzy, because you'll appreciate this. The start of the second round, I've been on a heater lately. The start of the second round, I bet the Heat and Nuggets will match up in the NBA Finals at plus 820. Plus 820. I bet the Heat to win the Eastern Conference at plus 360. Last night, before the game started, I bet Jimmy Butler to win NBA Finals MVP at plus 1,700 because no one expected them to beat Boston last night. And then they'd have to go on and beat Denver.
Plus 425 last night to win the game in the
Right. So I bet Jimmy Butler NBA MVP at plus 1,700. He's down to plus 350 today because obviously they're in the finals. I've been on a little bit of a heater there, Geltzy. Just wanted to share that.
Feed Hot. Keith Hot Man.
Just wanted to share
Hot Man. Let's feed him.
Just wanted to share that.
And Geltzy, you said you were impressed with him. You've been praising Spo for years. We know you respect Spo. The Bucks, you picked against them. The Knicks, you picked against them. The Celtics, you did. What did you learn about this roster? Spo's good. He's going to scheme it up. What have you learned through those 3 series?
I will tell you, and I think I've said this to you before in the past to you guys. Every team in the league should have a Martin brother on it, because I love those two guys, Caleb and Cody. But what Caleb has done here, what I didn't expect, is for Caleb Martin to play like a legit second star in this league in a conference final. And I mean two-way basketball. I'm going to say this to you guys. If Jaylen Brown plays the series that Caleb Martin played, we're talking about the Celtics in the finals today and not the Heat. That's how good Caleb Martin was. Every time they needed a bucket, he got it. They would play good defense on him, and Caleb Martin would find his way into hitting a contested shot. He was so tough on both ends of the floor. And listen, it speaks to, what the Heat have been able to do with player development and developing talent. It speaks to his tremendous work ethic in terms of just wanting to get better. And, Shannon, getting back to Spo's confidence in a guy to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to throw you in a spot where you can do a good job here. I'm willing to give you crap tons of responsibility that maybe you haven't necessarily earned in this league, because I believe in you, because what we do in practice matters, and you get this kind of performance. Listen, the other thing that I thought last night that no one really talked about, they got really good high-energy minutes that they needed last night in the face of foul trouble out of Haywood Highsmith. He played well last night. He looked good. Miami prepares players better than any other team in the league. And yes, conditioning plays a big role, but it's rarely ever you see the Heat have to go to a guy on the bench, and maybe he's athletically compromised and not the athlete or the player you need him to be. But at times, and I'm talking about guys like Zeller and Love, but everybody goes out there with full 100% effort and is always mentally ready to play.
I mean, you love Spo. You know that the Heat get prepared, players prepared, like you just said. Can they beat the Nuggets? How do they beat the Nuggets?
So, all right. So they can. Listen, as Solana predicted, I like the Nuggets in 7 in the series. I like the Nuggets. But I will also say this. I think that there is a formula for Miami to beat the Nuggets. And I think what it's going to revolve around doing is understand that we're willing to live with Jokic getting 40 a game. And that ultimately our biggest problem in this series lies around Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. and Brown and Caldwell Pope, because those are the guys that buried the Suns. And those are the guys that buried the Lakers. Yes, Jokic was absolutely fantastic. I thought the Lakers defended Jokic really well in that series. I really did. I thought that Darvin Ham was creative. I thought he tried different looks to throw at him and did everything they could. And that shows you how great Jokic is, and you're never really going to shut him down. And not that you shouldn't try, but the guys that make it untenable for you to beat them is the 4 I listed, but specifically Jamal Murray. That's going to be your big issue, is how to guard them. I will tell you, I think the Heat will play less zone in this series than they have in the past. I think Jokic's ability to pass will absolutely shred the zone. I mean, last night, you look at what Miami did with the zone. Miami got, it's an outcome of that zone, Smart or Horford shooting all the threes, and those were the guys they wanted shooting the threes that were cold as could be. They were willing to let those guys shoot from anywhere. You're not going to want to do that against Denver. Denver's going to shoot the ball better. That zone, and the other thing is that Jokic is not going to just pass the ball where you want him to pass the ball. They play it differently. They cut differently. They'll attack that zone in the middle a little more. I think that works to Miami's disadvantage, having to play a whole lot more man. But the flip side is that Miami has much better individual defenders than the Lakers have. And I think those individual defenders are going to make life harder for the 4 that I listed, for Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, Caldwell Pope, and Brown, because those 4 were killing everybody they've been playing.
And Geltzer, just quickly, man, what is a Jokic bad game? 20, 10, and 10?
All right, great question. Because here's a Jokic bad game. It's not just 20, 10, and 10. It's 20 on 24 shots. You always have to look at the shot number with him. You want to know if you're getting to Jokic, Channing, look at the amount of shots he misses and the amount of times he turns the ball over. He's always going to get a lot of rebounds. You'd like to figure out a way to keep the assists low if you can. It's not always easy to do. But if you single cover him, it's a little bit easier. So I'll say this. It's not 20, 10, and 10. It's 20 on 24 shots, and it's 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. You want to keep his turnovers high. You want to keep his missed shots high, and you want to keep his assists low. So generally, you want to guard him one-on-one with the best defender you can guard him with and stay at home on all of his shooters. That's how I would play him. Because I think once he gets going and you're doubling him and he's finding open people in different spots and they're shooting in rhythm, they have you with threes instead of twos. You can live and stay in games with Denver with Jokic's twos. Guard him one-on-one. If he goes crazy, big deal. He goes crazy. He's very, very tough to guard. But the last two teams, two very good basketball teams, Phoenix and the Lakers, lost series because they couldn't handle those other four guys. And Murray being the toughest one to handle. I think you'll probably see a whole lot of Martin on Murray. I think you'll see a lot of Jimmy Butler on Murray, too. The other thing is this. Bam Adebayo's fouls are important fouls, guys. Bam gets in foul trouble, and all of a sudden you're guarding Jokic with Cody Zeller or Kevin Love. That is a recipe for disaster, and you don't want to start with having to put Butler or Martin on Jokic either. That's not good for either of those guys. The physical toll it will take with Jokic's physicality and wanting them to be, they're still going to have to maintain the similar level that they played in this last series on the offensive end of the floor.
Nah, don't worry, Geltz. We've been saving UD for 8 seasons just for this series, so it's all good. We'll get some quality UD minutes.
Fresh legs.
You laugh, Solana. Okay, but did you notice that Darvin Ham, for a good 5-minute period in Game 4 against the Nuggets, took Tristan Thompson out of mothballs and put him in the game, and he played effective defense on Jokic? You laugh, but you may turn around and see UD for a 2 or 3 minute clip just in there to pound on Jokic and end up committing a few fouls on him, trying to keep the ball out of his hands. I've seen crazier things happen, and Spo is not. He's going to leave no stone unturned in terms of using that bench in this series.
So everybody's going to pick Jokic as the best player in this series, rightfully so, by the way. And Jimmy Butler, since that Milwaukee series, he hasn't had one of these really high scoring outputs. He's played really efficient outside of the 3 games Miami lost in this series. Does he need to be the best player on the floor throughout the series for the Heat to beat the Denver Nuggets? Or can they do it kind of like how we saw them do it against the Celtics, which was a bunch of other guys contributing at a really high level as well?
Oh, I think they can certainly do it that way. I do not. This is a series where it is not going to be a mano-on-mano situation where it's going to be Butler versus Jokic. I know a lot of people are going to try to spin it that way. That's not the way it's going to be. That's not the way Jimmy Butler necessarily wants it. I mean, I'll tell you this, what I would go to school on a little bit. First of all, I would, whenever possible, if I am Denver, have Aaron Gordon on Jimmy Butler. I think that's going to be the guy to guard him. And the one thing I saw out of Butler in this series is he struggled with athletic size that was put on him. I was surprised last night, God. And I know the guy's banged up a little bit, but it was a Game 7 that Joe Mazzulla played Robert Williams 13 minutes. Robert Williams had 8.6 rebounds and a block. As good as Miami was playing defensively, that the lob was there. The over-top lob to Rob Williams was there. They finished, I think, 2 or 3 of those. And every time Rob Williams got switched on to Jimmy, I mean, Jimmy attempted one shot, and it was a reverse from the left side that he came underneath with, and that he didn't hit. He looked nervous to shoot over Rob Williams because of his size and because he stayed with him. Yet he only saw 13 minutes of action last night. But if I'm Denver, I go to school on that a little bit. And I want you, the thing you forget about with Denver and the issue that the Heat have in this series that's bigger than they've seen in any other series. I know you're going to say, well, Milwaukee's pretty big too, but Milwaukee's not big and athletic like this. Like, Gordon's close to 6'10". Porter is 6'10". Like, their forwards are huge. And that, to me, is something that when you're defending Butler, I'm going to want to make sure that I find, even if I have to fight through screens here and there, even if I have to roll some extra help on him, but that I always have size on him. And if I'm throwing a double team on him, I want it to be a size double team also. I wouldn't hesitate to double him with Jokic and rotate someone else to Bam and give up a little size there. It's important. I will say this, and the Celtics did some of this and not enough of this, but your best chance to beat the Heat is say, okay, you know what? It happened against Boston because Caleb Martin burned them, but I'm going to get beat by a Martin, by a Strus, by a Robinson, by a Lowry, by an Adebayo, as opposed to getting beat by Jimmy Butler.
And Geltz, a big narrative after that game last night was that the Brown-Tatum combination is a failure. It's just not going to work. They need to blow it up. Damian Lillard's name was brought up. Trae Young's name was brought up. What's your opinion on that?
Don't break these two guys up. To me, this whole season for the Celtics and the fact that they lost in a conference final as the most talented team in the NBA, and they were the most talented team in the NBA, is a coaching issue. And it's very easy for me to throw stones and blame Joe Mazzulla. And I do blame Joe Mazzulla for some of it, but I also feel bad for Joe Mazzulla. 34-year-old guy, never coached a team before, was thrown into this spot. And he's got, 4 assistant coaches. They didn't replace any assistants when guys left. Will Hardy left to go to Utah. They didn't replace him. They promoted Mazzulla. They didn't replace him. David Stoudemire left halfway through the season. I think the Georgia Tech job. They didn't replace him. So not only is Mazzulla a rookie at this, he's literally got no help on the bench. And I talk to people around the league. Their sets are remedial. Real basketball guys are laughing at what Mazzulla does. But here's the problem. Mazzulla's probably going to stay because Brad Stevens loves him. The word I got is that Brad Stevens is comfortable with him because Brad doesn't want someone that's got their own ideas. Mazzulla will carry Brad Stevens' ideas to the sidelines. Tatum and Brown are fine together. They have a great relationship. Listen, Jaylen Brown doesn't handle the ball well. And on a better coach team, he'd have to handle the ball less because there's plenty of ball handlers. I mean, Brown had 8 turnovers last night, and some of them are inexcusable. He got poked twice from behind on a dribble with Butler, which is something you're teaching kids in AAU. When you turn the corner on a guy and he's going to do the poke from behind, your dribble's got to be low and you got to switch hands on it. Fundamental, simple things that Brown just doesn't do dribbling the ball. Dribbles with his head down, so when he does decide to look up to make a play, he doesn't really have a feel. It's stuff that Brown's got to work on, but it doesn't mean you break Tatum and Brown apart. Every team in the league wants a pair of wings this way. I just feel like you got to commit, $50 to $55 million a year to Jaylen Brown. I would do it, figuring that, he's going to retain trade value if I wanted to move him later on. But I don't know that I do it unless this ownership group's willing to invest financially in this coaching staff. It's hard for me to understand. I mean, I would think they're going to bring in a big time lead assistant to help Mazzulla if they keep Mazzulla for next year. But I just don't understand that you're the most talented team in the league with a title window that's open here, and you put a guy in that's never coached a team before. You're paying all this money in salary, and then all of a sudden when you look at what you have to pay a coach, comparatively it's not expensive, but that's the spot where they're cheaping out. It's really hard for me to understand that mentality there in Boston and how they didn't put more intellectual resources on the sidelines to support Mazzulla and support the players.
How jealous are you, Geltzy, of South Florida? I mean, the Heat, the Panthers. I mean, what do you got? The Devils up there and the Nets and the Sixers. I mean, how jealous are you of us?
Listen, this is what I'll say. I am jealous because if it was the Knicks and the Rangers, we would be going crazy up here. It will be, and I remember that June. I remember having that June in 1994 where the Knicks were in the finals against the Rockets and the Rangers were in the finals against the Vancouver Canucks, and the Rangers hadn't won a Stanley Cup since 1940, and that hop was a very near and dear thing to my family. My father became a Rangers fan when they won the Cup in 1940 at the age of 12, and was a huge hockey fan, season ticket holder for many years. And that 94 Cup gave him, he finally had his pleasure with that. And with the Knicks, listen, it was a very, very exciting run with Pat Riley in New York with the Knicks and what they were able to do. So I'm so jealous of what you guys have down there because the excitement is amazing. And I know people like to say, hey, well, Miami's not really a sports town. You get this kind of situation with the Panthers and the Heat, both very unlikely to advance to the finals, and both here advance to the finals. It's really a very special time down there. I envy you guys, but I'm also happy for you guys because I will say this: I think your fans get a bad rap. I think you have great fans in that South Florida area, and fans that are very supportive of their teams. And here you get some glory time here with having both the Panthers and the Heat in the finals.
Talk about it, Geltzy. I mean, Solana's got a cigar in his mouth during the show today. I mean, he's banging pots and pans. We're having the time of our lives, Geltzy.
So, wait, Hoff, do me a favor, though. Go play what Jimmy Butler said at the podium last night for Solana to get him to take the cigar out of his mouth.
Why?
Did you hear Jimmy Butler on the podium last night?
What did he say?
I was so impressed with Jimmy Butler on the podium. What he said was this. He looked at his watch. I think it was 11:15, 11:20 at the time. He's like, we have till midnight tonight to celebrate. Then we start to prepare for Denver. We didn't do this and come this far because we just wanted to win the conference. We're in it to win the whole thing. So, Solana, ease up on the cigar, champ, okay? The guys that you're rooting for have much, much bigger fish to fry than what they did last night. And that's the attitude you want your team to have. The Heat are a championship organization. They've got championships under their belt. They want championships. They've had conference championships before. In the end, doesn't mean much to them. So, yes, it's great to celebrate. It's great to be happy. Much work yet to be done.
Premature celebration, Solana. Premature.
I don't think so, because my clock works a little different, Geltzy. And the Miami Heat since 2006 have more conference championships than any other organization in the NBA. And I have until 8:30 p.m. Thursday to celebrate that. So I'll keep the cigar right in my mouth.
Hey, listen, you do what you want to do. I'm just telling you what Jimmy Butler said. And let's face it, Jimmy Butler's got a much better track record than you, Solana. Okay? So if I got to pick between what Jimmy Butler said
That's
about
fair.
getting ready for this series and about what Solana said, okay? Solana, by the time the ball tips off, you won't even have been able to put enough toothpaste or mouthwash in your mouth to get a tobacco taste out of it, okay? By the time the game
Fair
tips
points.
off. Okay, let's Hawk, Crowder, let's do ourselves a favor. Let's listen to Jimmy Butler and not Solana.
Brian Geltzeiler from Sirius XM NBA Radio. I will leave you with these words. The heat is on. Da 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 da. Pop pop. All right, we'll see you, Geltzy.
I'm sure I'll talk to you during the series,
You
guys. I look
most
forward to it.
certainly will. And we have marked the sound where you pick Nuggets in 7. We marked the sound with tobacco from Solana Cigar. I don't know.